I think the biggest mistake is people think that SEO is difficult, therefore they don't start. So the biggest mistake is not starting. So if you start, like 90% of your success is already there just by starting.
Hello there, and welcome to another episode of the Ask a Private Lender podcast. As always, I'm your host, Lawrence from Mortgage Automator. And today we're going to be joined by our marketing director at Mortgage Automator, Tatiana Couture. So we're happy to have her. And why we brought her in for today's episode is because our guest is also in the marketing arena. And we're extremely excited to have him here. I think that if you're a lender who is trying to go after clients directly, you're trying to market yourselves to bring in more brokers, you have to listen to this interview. It's going to be great. Jay, thank you so much for stopping by today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
So just to touch on your background for a brief moment, you're a former web developer. You worked with all sorts of different companies, big companies, small companies. You were making a lot of money as an employee at those companies, and you decide to leave to become a blogger.
Yes.
How did that come about? Why did you decide to walk away from it all to start something on your own?
Well, there was a few reasons. One is I was at the point where I wanted to get more creative freedom because I knew eventually I wanted to create more time for myself to be able to spend with my family. And I don't have kids yet, but I'm planning to have kids. So I wanted that freedom that I could be able to spend with my wife, my kids, and so on and so forth. So I wanted to do things on my own terms and kind of set my own schedule and stuff like that.
So yeah, and so obviously you're an SEO expert. To touch on your blog, just so the listeners understand, you started a blog. You ended up getting like more than 1 million views in a very, very short period of time. And you have to understand the internet. You have to understand how to get in front of people. SEO is obviously like a major component to that. How did you learn how to do that? Like, did you read articles online? Did you know people in the industry? Like, what was your way of getting to the top?
It was I got started in it when I was working in some large corporations in Vegas. So they wanted to go more into SEO. So at that time, I was like dabbling in it and stuff like that, and I was kind of learning. But when I started my blog and started doing my own thing, that's when things accelerated. I enrolled in the SEO course. That was pretty helpful, but the biggest thing for me is I just did things. I know this is going to sound cliche, but it's like that saying that if you want to learn how to swim, you just dive in. Like I just dove in and just created content and just kept at it and just kind of improved along the way. And so now I have a process that's pretty refined and to the point where I can if Lawrence, if your site, like I could immediately go on there and kind of analyze it and give you recommendations to kind of improve it right from the jump. So it's just about like doing as I went for the most part.
And like my understanding is like all of these search engines, I mean, SEO for people who don't know, search engine optimization. So whether it's Google or another search engine, the idea is you want to get to the top of the list, right?
Yeah.
People type in, they don't typically go to the third, fourth, fifth, sixth page. You want to be at the first page. They can find your site. The algorithms change from time to time. At least that's my understanding. I don't know a lot about it, but
there was a recent one in June.
Every few months.
Yeah, every few months. So when these algorithms change, do you have to start from scratch, or do you just adjust all the work you've already accomplished up to that point and just make a few tweaks and now you're still where you're supposed to be?
No, so I'm glad you brought that up because I feel like there's a big myth with this. And nowadays we hear so much about algorithm changes, like on social media, like Instagram algorithm changes, Pinterest algorithm changes, so on and so forth. With a Google algorithm change is kind of different. Like an algorithm change on social media, like Instagram or whatever, would affect everybody, no matter what. With a Google algorithm change, I could have a site, Tatiana could have a site, and you could have a site, but we may not all be affected. In fact, when an algorithm change happens, there's always going to be people who benefit from it and people who don't, or people who stay the same. So just so happens in this previous June algorithm update, I was affected, but the people that I consulted weren't. So it just depends on the nature of it. And to go back to your question, like, do you need to change everything? That's actually the biggest thing I would say to avoid. Most people, when they see they were negatively affected, that they're losing what, like for example, like on the June update, I lost up to about 18 to 25% of my daily traffic. But most people will probably freak out and kind of change something right away. You don't want to do that. You kind of want to let things kind of simmer down a little bit, like cool down, and then kind of after like a little bit, you kind of want to look what's going on, then going. So case in point is, if I reacted on the June, I believe it was a June 2nd update, if I reacted that week, then I could have potentially hurt my rankings. After 3 weeks, I'm bouncing back. So
Really?
yeah, and the only thing I'm doing is just creating more content. So I'm not really going back and adjusting other articles that are high ranking or anything like that. So I would suggest do not overreact, let things cool down and kind of go from there. So
It's kind of
And
like
do they
trading on the stock market, right? If the stock
yeah,
goes down,
exactly.
don't panic,
Yeah,
sell.
no
exactly.
panic,
Yeah.
burn
Yeah.
everything down,
Yeah.
run around and try to figure it out? But so do they notify everyone like our algorithm has changed, or is it just something that you wake up and you're like, these visitors, it just doesn't look right. It doesn't seem like it's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, so it's kind of a mix of both. Like for example, Google is doing an important update called a Web Core Vitals update, and they plan on doing that in July, and it's going to roll out. It's going to roll out from July to August, and maybe a little bit in September. But this June update was what's called a core algorithm update, and I didn't really know about it until, like, I'm part of this community, and I didn't know about it until like a lot of people started talking about it. And then sure enough, when a lot of people started talking about it, I noticed that a like immediate dip around that date of my traffic. So that's kind of how you know about it. Sometimes you know, sometimes you don't. So
Yeah, it's pretty
Interesting.
much like you have to follow, well, first of all, Google and social media, that's where
yeah,
they do make the announcements. But otherwise,
yeah,
like, yeah, you have to specifically follow different SEO blogs, etc.
yeah,
Otherwise, if you're just like an ordinary business owner, you'll just see it in your traffic if you're
yeah.
affected or
Is
not.
there such thing as like, because I guess like Instagram is really big, Facebook is
Mhm.
big, and you can pay for marketing on there. But the idea of SEO is organic,
Yep,
right?
yep.
Is there such thing as like organic SEO on the social media platforms, or is that
Well, yeah, you can get organic traffic. It's just that nowadays, like Instagram is so saturated that it doesn't work. Where you'll see the most explosive organic growth is like TikTok and LinkedIn, because they're kind of still new. They're not overly saturated, but the organic reach in Instagram has plummeted a lot just because like so many people are on it. But
right?
that kind of organic is a little bit different than SEO, and it's kind of why I like SEO, is where like your reach on social platforms would probably be at the highest like when you post that content, but your reach on when you create like articles and that rank in Google, it's kind of like, I kind of like related. I'm not a wine drinker, but it's kind of like wine. Like it, as it ages, it gets better and better and better. So your views, ideally, if you're doing your job right, your views will get better and better and better and better. Of course, there will be a plateau point where it just is steady, but over time, your ranking, the amount of
Well,
views you get will grow.
yeah. I mean, if I guess if you're like one of the top few in your keyword, I mean, you're always going to be at the top. It's more about the amount of people who are searching for those keywords, right? As opposed to anything else. I mean, you can't, if you're already at number one, there's nothing better than number one. So it's not like you're there.
No,
It's
but
just
you can
about how
stop
many,
being the number one also.
but you can what?
You can stop being the number one.
You can stop being the number
Yeah.
one. No, I'm saying, yeah, but I'm saying more of like, to get more traffic, like you're always going to plateau. Like once you kind of reach the height, right, you're going to plateau at that top number. So depending on how many people are searching for what you're targeting, you're going to probably get all of that traffic regardless.
Yeah. So Actually, let me explain how it kind of works a little bit, because I think there is a little misunderstanding. Like if you rank in number one, people automatically think if you rank in the top number one position, you will get the most amount of traffic. That's not necessarily the case. What is
Mm,
true is so what gets you a lot of traffic is different keywords and phrases that are in your content that allows you to be more discovered. So your top articles aren't, they're not bringing in traffic just from one term, right? They're bringing in traffic from like hundreds of terms. And so when you first get the number one spot, you'll get X amount of traffic. But the reason why you'll grow in time is because Google's understanding your content. So you'll start ranking from additional terms
mm,
or semantic terms that are within your content, or people are just typing in and that happen to lead to you. So that's how it grows over time. So one of the biggest things that people say is update your content, and that gives you a massive amount of views. While that the reason why that's kind of true is because you're adding more value, you're adding more content to be discovered by.
right.
So
That makes sense.
So if we're to get to the actual tactics,
yeah,
you are kind of familiar with our audience, the lenders, the brokers, keeping their business in mind. What do you think are some of the things they should focus on when they are kind of designing their SEO strategy? What are like the most important points to think about?
so I want to keep it to the fundamentals. I think if you know a few of the fundamentals, it will take you
Yeah.
very far. So the first thing I would suggest is if you learn how to analyze the top 10 results and try to understand the intent of the searches. So for example, if you were to type in, just off the top of my head, if you were to type in coffee makers, and I believe when you search coffee makers, you'll see a bunch of like different coffee makers. But then if you type in coffee maker, maybe coffee recipes or something like that, you'll see a list of different coffee recipes. So if you can analyze the intent behind the searches, you're off to the races. That is one fundamental thing that you kind of have to get to know. The next thing I would recommend is know how to find low competition keywords. And the reason why I want to say low competition is because people who are starting out, that is their best chance to get in a high ranking spot if they go after these low competition keywords and learn how to create a topic around that. So if you can learn how to create a topic that solves people's problems, that will do wonders. And one of the biggest mistakes that I kind of see from people is that when they create content, it's usually all about them. It's like a press release or some kind of thing about them. They're not making it about the user. So if you can learn to make it about the user and solve their problems, you're golden.
Value. It's value driven. You got to
Yeah.
create value for people for them to be interested in what you're posting. Otherwise, it's not going to help anybody.
Yeah.
So then what are some of the fundamentals that they should absolutely avoid? Because, like back in the day, people would do keyword stuffing when it was all about keywords, things like that. And obviously a user who is new to the whole SEO game and they don't understand, they will probably do that as well. So like, what are some of the most common mistakes? Well, one of them you just mentioned being the content, but like what else people should absolutely avoid doing as well?
Yeah, so a lot of people, well, I think the biggest mistake is people think that SEO is difficult, therefore they don't start. So the biggest mistake is not starting. So if you start, like 90% of your success is already there just by starting. The other thing people do is, so when you get like links to your content, that's like a vote. And people do game the system. They buy links buy links that point back to their content. And you want to avoid this at all costs, because you will get penalized. You may not be penalized for this week or this month or even this year, but if Google ends up finding out that you do this, then you'll lose a lot of your organic traffic. And not only for that page, but Google can probably penalize you to the point where it doesn't see you as an expert anymore. So your entire rankings for your entire site could go down.
Yeah, they're coming
So,
for you.
yeah, they're coming for you. And the other thing is, I just many people think that SEO is about like one big thing that will give you a lot of traffic, but it's about doing a bunch of little things. I really feel that SEO isn't difficult at all. It's just about doing a lot of things. So don't plagiarize content, of course, that's obvious. Like you mentioned, don't stuff your content with keywords. So it's just this few things, then I think you'll be fine. So it's mostly just, just start and just keep at it, and just do a bunch of little things like formatting. Another thing I kind of see a lot is people put like walls of text in their copy. Like if you were to just optimize that page by breaking it up into subheadings, making your instead of making your paragraphs like 5-6 sentences long, make it to like 1 sentence or 2 sentences and break it up, giving that brief and providing this creates a better user experience. So yeah.
Yeah.
Do companies ever come to you? Sorry, Satya. Do companies ever come to you and they think like they're behind? Like, I want to do SEO, but people in my category, they've been doing it for 10 years.
Yeah.
How will I ever catch up? Is it worth the money? Is it worth the time? Do people ever say that to you?
I always hear this argument, is it too late? Is SEO dead? Like I always hear that. And it's never too late. Technically speaking, I'm in a niche. Granted, it's not the real estate niche. I'm in a niche that, like other big companies dominate. And so it's just like, it's never too late to start. I think all those reasons that people say are just an excuse to prevent starting. So if you just I think starting is I'm a big fan of just starting and just kind of going from there. Yeah.
Just wake up,
yeah,
go to work. That's it.
Yeah.
Just go to
Yeah.
work and do your thing, and
Yeah.
and eventually it'll work out for you. What about what about video content? Right? Like that's really popular these days. People share video content on their website, on
Mhm.
social media platforms, everywhere.
Yeah.
How does Google understand what's in that video? Is that going to help you at all? Or how do people work with videos for SEO?
So I know you're asking the question specifically about video, but I kind of want to talk about video and images because they both kind of relate. So
Sure, yeah, that makes sense.
So when people are optimizing their content, most people think it's just about the content. It's just about the page. When in actuality, images and video in themselves could bring a lot of organic traffic. For example, I bring over 10,000 monthly visitors just by my images alone. Just purely images, not even the content, just the JPEGs or PNGs or whatever, bring in over 10,000 monthly visitors, and videos over 1,000. So there are things that you can do to optimize each one. Like for example, for the video one, is what I do is I'll have a YouTube video, and then in the YouTube video, you can either optimize the title or the description in the YouTube settings. And of course, make sure the video kind of relates to your description and stuff like that. And then you can just embed that into your post. So that is one way to optimize the video. And for images, you can just use what's called alt tags and just use relevant terms to describe your image with alt tags for images. And that,
interesting.
Yeah, that over time, it'll just compounds and compounds.
Very interesting. And getting started, I know people jump into keywords. Like, how do you know what a good keyword is? I mean, I would assume like in the mortgage and the lending space, it'd be like, private lender, or like looking for like private loans or something to that effect. But how do you know for real if you're targeting something that's good quality, that's going to bring you traffic?
Okay, so this will be a little fun because I have 2 different ways that you can do this. The first way is using what's called a keyword research tool. And there's many out there. There's many paid for, there's many free ones to do. But you can use a keyword tool. Most keyword tools have the functionality where you can look up different terms. Like for example, let's say how to start a mortgage broker business, right? And let's say a keyword tool can report that it has 30 monthly searches, right? This is not true. I'm just making this number up, but just for an example, right? So, so it can report how many monthly searches it has and the difficulty for ranking for that term. So that's what overall keyword tools can do. There's other functionality that tools have, but just to give you that's what it can do. So you can use a tool. I want to kind of stress though that keyword tools aren't necessarily the most accurate. So what you want to do is kind of use it as inspiration and kind of use it as a way to just give you ideas to create topics. For example, if you're looking up 3 terms and you see one term has more search volume than the other 2, then it might pay more dividends to go after the one that brings in more search volume. So that's how I mean by use it as inspiration. The other thing I kind of want to do is kind of like a little exercise that I think everybody could do at home. And the only thing you need is a Google browser, right? So if you go to google.com, right? And then in the search field of Google, let's type in mortgage broker. So 2 words, mortgage broker, type Google in. Don't hit enter, just type that word in the field. Don't hit search yet.
Okay.
So after you do that, I want you to type an asterisk and a space in front of the term mortgage broker.
Okay.
And what an asterisk is a placeholder, meaning it just means everything. Like it's a special Google operator that means search any, this represents any term, anything. So, all right. So after you have, so right now you should have the asterisk space, mortgage space broker. Then in front of the asterisk, what you want to do is you want to type in words that start with a question. So you want to type in like is, how, what, why. In this example, let's do is. So we're going to have, so what you should have now is space, asterisk, space, mortgage broker. And then place your cursor right before the asterisk or right at the asterisk. And then you should see a bunch of auto suggestions pop up, right? And then when I did it, I saw the suggestion that says, is mortgage broker a good career? Do you see that, Lawrence?
Yeah.
All right, so click on that.
Okay.
And then in the results, what you'll notice, I think you'll see a Quora page. You'll see a Quora, a quorum, maybe it's around number 6 or number 5. Let me know if you don't see it. I can show you on my
Quora. Is a mortgage broker a good career out of college?
So this is perfect. So the reason why this is perfect, because Quora is a form. And when a form result is in your top 10, it is low hanging fruit. It's user generated content, and that means you can easily outrank it. I mean, a blog post can easily outrank it. So what you want to do is just create a topic around that topic, because what the forum post is telling Google is there's no good resource available for that term. So
interesting.
So all you want to do is like kind of like hunt and find terms like this that have like a forum post in the top results, and then go after that term. So
that is slick.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah.
So because it's a Quora, it just means that there's no professionals going after that keyword, which is why its user generated content is in the top 10.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be professionals. It's just saying there's no relevant, good, valuable content that is addressing this. So it's relying on user generated content. And sometimes user generated content might be the best one is. Like if there's a forum post that has a lot of images in it, a lot of descriptions, and a lot of stuff within that post, then that might mean that forum, that post, that Quora, whatever form it is, might be really good. But most of the time it's just like people just like user generated just comments and stuff like that. So you can easily outrank it.
Very, very neat. That I mean, I don't think most people would know to do that, right? So definitely a reason why companies need individuals who understand. That's great. And I had another question I wanted to ask about keywords, which was about the success of them. Like, how do you measure keyword performance, SEO success? I'm assuming there's some sort of trackers on that you would use.
Yeah, so there's 2 things I use, and most people use this. Most people who are doing SEO don't pretty much know how to do this. And you would set up a Google Analytics page and a Google Search Console. Both are free. And then what we'll do when you set up Google Analytics, it gives you a little code snippet that you put on your site. And basically what it does, it will track all your views and everybody that comes to your site. And then what you can do is it can report on each page. So you can see the views and the growth of each page, and you can compare it. So you can put like a time comparison on it. So you can compare this month to the previous month, or you compare this year to the past year, and so on and so forth. So, and then so I would track, so every month I pull a report on how like all the pages do, so I can compare how each page does month over month. And so if I see that a particular page is losing a lot of views over the past few months compared to where it was, then I would go in and I would start to kind of bring that post back to life by updating it or whatever. And
when do you trash a keyword? How long of no results do you just say, like, I'm done with this keyword, I'm not going to continue with it?
what do you mean by trash?
Like just not go after it anymore. So you're going after a keyword, you're not getting the results you want. Maybe the people coming through to your site, like if you're selling something, for instance, they're just not converting. Like, how long would you continue trying to go after a certain keyword if there's no success?
Well, whenever you're creating a piece of content around a particular keyword, I wouldn't necessarily trash it. I would just keep it, because what happens is as you one of the reasons why I'm a big fan of creating content consistently is that as you create content, it helps push up all your other content on your site. So I wouldn't necessarily trash it, because if you're I lightly doubt this happens if you do a good SEO job. Even if you do a mediocre SEO job, I doubt this what happens. But if you have a keyword and that's absolutely getting nothing, I mean, it could happen. If it's getting absolutely nothing, then what I would do is try to see if I can add more value to it, or try to update it in a way that brings it back to life. Or what I would do is try to find create other content that could like work adjacent to that topic, and then link back to that previous one that isn't getting many views, and that will help pass some what's called link juice over to it, and then that could help bring it back up. So there are ways. I wouldn't necessarily trash anything, because you never know. Like, I'm getting views from things that haven't gotten views like in the first 6-8 months, so you never know what could happen. So I wouldn't necessarily just delete something.
Right. It's just doing like you were saying earlier, you got to do a lot of little things to make something big happen. So I guess it's just the patience. It's
exactly.
continuing to create content.
Yeah.
And eventually, if you just continue at it, things will fall into place.
In terms of patience, especially, I think a lot of people who are new to this, they don't realize that organic SEO is actually a very long game. Like, you will not see results maybe even in the first 6 months. So it usually takes up to a year for the content to like really start generating traffic. And a lot of people, they just think, oh my God, it's not working. I don't want to do this anymore. How do I, what do I do? Are there any organic instead of paid, obviously? So like paid SEO is usually the faster way, which is your Google search ads. But are there any organic tactics that you know of that maybe work, or like at least help for things to work faster than they normally would?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? There was a jet that flew by, so I totally drowned it out.
Okay.
Everything that you said. So
okay, I'll start again. Are there any SEO tactics that you know of, organic ones, that could maybe speed up the process, so that people wouldn't need to wait for a year? Like, is there something extra that you can do to kind of get more SEO?
Is there secret sauce to push you to the top of the list without working as hard? That's what she's asking.
Yeah, but being free, obviously, not paying for the ads.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things I could recommend is learn how to craft a title, because your title is a dominant thing that shows up in the results. So if you can learn how to craft an appealing title that gets clicks, that's going to serve you wonders. So, and the other thing I would recommend, so I didn't do this, but a lot of people vouch for it, is like try to see if you can like create content on another for another site that has a lot of traffic, and that way they usually link back to you. In the industry, it's called like guest poster and guest blogging, but I didn't do that, because I find that again, I go back to creating content, is the things that give me the most links. Like, I don't do any active link building strategy at all, and you hear it in the industry as the go-to thing. I find that people naturally link to my content, and like just by creating good resources for people,
Yeah.
just attracts people naturally. So I was actually starting to get views in the first few months. So yes, it does take, to your point, Tan, it does take like about a year for you to reach about 90% of your traffic potential. But in that meantime, within the first 6 months, I would say you should start seeing some trickles. You should start seeing some indication that what you're doing is paying off. And then I would say once you get your first 100 views, then you have proof of concept that what you're doing is working, and just keep going.
Right. I assume that people are impatient and they end up paying at the same time because they
Yeah,
still want some results and they don't want to wait the year or
yeah,
6 months or whatever it is, right?
yeah. I'm just not a big fan of paying, because as soon as you stop paying, then your traffic, like it gets cut off. So
Right.
I'm much more rather spend my energy building things up organically, and that way it can last for a long time.
I
Makes
would say
sense.
that like content is king for a reason, right? So as long as you create real quality content with, fact checked, if you're in the industry that's, has to be fact checked, like whatever happens to the algorithm, whatever happens around you is not going to affect you that much. People are still gonna link to you. All of that is still going to work out, as long as you create like really quality content.
Yeah.
Is there any, like, there is a lot of speculation in terms of the length of that content, though. Like, some people say you have to write a 10,000 word article, while others are like, 500 words is more than enough. So, do you think, like, is there any recommendation that you can make in that regard?
Yeah, that's a big one. And so the reason that popped up is there was a study, I think by Forbes as well as Business Insider, that proves stats like content that was more than 2,000 words got more views. And the reason that is because it's not because of the word count, it's because of the depth of the article. And usually when something has more depth to it, provides more insights, it's just longer, and it's just naturally longer. But that's not necessarily the case. I have articles that's ranking in number one, and it has less than 300 words on it. So it goes back to what I said at the beginning of this conversation, is by knowing how to analyze the top 10 results and understanding the intent. Because, for example, if you analyze how to start a mortgage broker business and you saw like the top 10, this is not the case, but if you saw in the top 10 results, like all the content that ranked in the top 3 positions were like 500 words, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to write a 2,000 word article to be top one. It will probably help you because most likely it will be more in depth, but it just goes to show you word count isn't just the word count itself isn't what ranks, is the quality of the content that ranks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Lawrence, do you feel like you know a lot more about SEO now?
Well, yeah, I mean, just the whole, the asterisk trick that you have there with the core, I think that's great. Listen, I think that SEO is obviously an extremely important thing if you're looking to bring traffic into your website for whatever reason, whether you're selling a product, whether you're a lender and you want to connect with brokers, or you want to go after borrowers directly. It's definitely something that you need to keep in mind, because more times than not, clients don't just randomly show up and
Exactly.
call you out of the clear blue, right? They're looking on the internet for things that interest them. And if you could be the first thing to pop up, or at least in the top page, you have a much better chance of turning that potential client into a client, right? So I do think it's extremely important. One thing that I didn't know, I thought that once you're behind, you're kind of behind,
Yeah.
which may be somewhat true, and it's going to take time to build your content and get there. But like Jay was saying, you just got to start, right?
Yeah.
Every day that goes by where you don't start is one day further away from actually getting results.
Yeah.
So no, it's definitely important for you, Jay. I mean, you're an expert in SEO. I know you have clients that you do help. How do people reach out to you if they want to talk to you about potentially starting up SEO with their own business? How do they reach out to you?
You can contact me on, you can send me a DM through Instagram. My Instagram handle is at jaejohns.com, or you can go to my website. Now, my website is all about helping artists and creatives, but you can go on my website, jaejohns.com, and just go to contact page and just send me an email, get my email address from there and send me an email. I'm more than happy to kind of assist you.
So like before we log off, I have one more question. It works regardless of the industry, right? So no matter what you're doing, it's the same tactic, it's the same thing that you would do to get those clients through the door, right?
Yeah, it's just all about knowing the search intent and just finding those low competition keywords like I showed you with the asterisk strict. There's many more tricks, but I like the asterisk strict because it's nice and visual, and I think most people can grasp it right away. And when I was consulting other realtors back in Vegas, is this is kind of like a thing that I want people in this industry to kind of know is like you are a master in sales. Like your industry is sales driven, so it usually with marketing is kind of like the opposite. People kind of want to go in sales all the way, but if you can just shift your thinking a little bit and provide value, and then that helps build up brands, that builds up awareness and stuff like that, that you'll be able to capture those leads through that way, and then be able to do sales on top of that. So yeah.
That sounds great. Tatiana, any last words?
Not for me. I think we covered quite a bit of the SEO basics, so I hope it's going to help people.
Yeah,
I think it's great. Jay, we really appreciate you stopping by. Again, it's Jae Johns. Reach out to him on Instagram. I think his hashtag you said was Jay.
We will link to the website in the
we'll link. Yeah, Tatiana knows what the link is and the keywords and the hashtags. That's not my gig, but we'll make sure that people can definitely reach out to you. And thought it was really informative. We really appreciate your time, and we hope to speak to you again at some point.
No problem. Anytime, just hit me up. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks
for having me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye-bye.